Good day, ladies and gentlemen. As the holiday season draws near, we want to get in the spirit the way our 18th and 19th century forebears would have by shooting in the Christmas season and the New Year. In centuries past, it would have been customary for men to go door to door shooting their guns and alerting everyone in the house that the partygoers had arrived. It was traditional for those in the house to come down and offer those partygoers food and drink. And where there's food and drink, there's toasts. So lift your glasses, supposing you have one, and repeat after us as we do some toasts to honor the day.
Now Christmas comes, 'tis fit that we.
Now Christmas comes, 'tis fit that we.
Should feast and sing and merry be.
Should feast and sing and merry be.
Keep open house, let fiddlers play.
Keep open house, let fiddlers play.
A fig for cold, come sings away.
A fig for cold, come sings away.
Huzzah!
May each be found thus as the year circles round.
May each be found thus as the year circles round.
With mirth and good humor each Christmas be crowned.
With mirth and good humor each Christmas be crowned.
And may all who have plenty of riches in store,
And may all who have plenty of riches in store,
with their bountiful blessings make happy the poor.
with their bountiful blessings make happy the poor.
For never as yet it was counted a crime
For never as yet it was counted a crime
to be merry and cheery at this happy time.
to be merry and cheery at this happy time.
Huzzah!
Here's to thee, O apple tree.
Here's to thee, O apple tree.
Hats full, sacks full, big bushel baskets full.
Hats full, sacks full, big bushel baskets full.
Huzzah!
Ho, 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 ho. Well, that was an exciting way to begin. And with that, I want to welcome you all to Historic Brattonsville's annual Christmas Candlelight. As you can already tell, this year is drastically different than last, but we are so glad that you and your loved ones are able to join us. We have some wonderful things in store for you, including a look at holiday cooking in the 19th century, music, decorating, and some stories about the people who lived here on the Bratton plantation. So without further ado, let the celebration begin.
It wasn't until the late 1840s that Christmas trees started showing up in our neighbors' parlors. And it wasn't until I was grown that one showed up in my mother's. I'll never forget it. My mother, Miss Harriet Bratton, who you may recall, shocked us all and let us put up a Christmas tree in her house. She had always spoken of Christmas celebrations as papist nonsense. So staunch was she in the Presbyterian tradition of austere remembrance of Christ's birth. We stood in reverential fear of my mother even as adults, so we never crossed her, even as we got to experience grand illuminations and caroling of Christmas parties in Salem and Columbia. But as it happens, my mother came to change her mind. My father had died years before, and I think the passage of time softened her to our newfangled ideas. It started with a few parties. Then came the festive greenery around the door facings and on mantels. At one point, my mother started getting a little anxious that we were imposing on the Almighty's good graces. But the next year, when Mother didn't reprimand my Uncle Samuel Rainey for playing Christmas carols on his fiddle at dinner, we knew the tide had turned. The following year, my sister suggested a decorating evergreen tree, which we had seen printed in the grand fashion of Godey's Lady's Book, one of Mother's magazines. Of course, there was a bit of an argument at first. Absolutely not, my mother's first declaration. It's a pagan tradition and one that I will not allow in my household. My sister Jane was a voice of reason. It's not done in pagan fashion, Mother. The Moravians in Salem have trees all the time, and they're as devoted to the Lordship of Jesus Christ as you are. My mother was adamant. It's making light of something of immense importance, the birth of our Savior. With the parties and celebrations, it's dangerously close to idolatry and mockery. Besides, it simply isn't done in Presbyterian circles. But my sister Agnes understood my mother better. Well, you're right about that, Mother. It hasn't been seen in this area before. Can you imagine what the neighbors would say when they heard about glittering candlelight, festive garlands, not to mention a Christmas tree the likes of which hasn't been seen this side of Columbia? If you couldn't win my mother over with theological argument, catering to her vanity would work. Once Mother agreed to bring a tree in her house, my brothers and sisters and I got to work. We came up with many ideas how to decorate, several of which were inspired by Godey's latest book. It was fun working with my siblings on this project. We felt like children again. Of course, we did it all in the strictest secrecy. Mother knew what we were up to, but we had decided to make a special surprise for her on Christmas night. We could barely contain our excitement on Christmas Day. Everyone arrived on time for lunch, fit for a king, and the grandchildren opened their stockings and enjoyed the peppermints, oranges, English walnuts, and other treats. After lunch, one of our tenants delivered a spindly cedar tree, and we barricaded ourselves in the parlor to create our masterpiece. Our older siblings had strict instructions to distract our mother. We all brought our contributions, intricate ornaments made of paper and painted with watercolors, beeswax candles smaller than your finger, red ribbons and tiny gifts to tie the branches of our trees. We had strung garlands and cranberries and allspice on wire and made pasteboard baubles carefully sewn together. My sister quickly took command of the activity, which meant that we spent the next several hours adjusting and readjusting the decorations, much to my eternal frustration. When my sister finally gave their approval, we were pleased with the efforts. We had indeed worked a miracle with a little cedar, now only to gain our mother's approval. Just before the long-anticipated Christmas supper, we called everyone to join us in the parlor. To add a bit of drama to the experience, we set up a screen of white sheets and 2 long poles. Mother came in, a little smile on her face. It was hard to tell if she was bashful because of the big to-do we were making, or if she was nervous about exactly what kind of blasphemy we were about to commit. My sister Agnes immediately launched into a long speech of how having a tree was a long time in coming, how we'd spent days working on the decorations, and how we were grateful that Mother had finally given her blessing for us to install the tree for everyone to enjoy. With that, Jane and I carefully lowered the sheet, revealing our masterpiece. Though our family's gasp of delight and polite applause, I only remember my mother's face glowing in the warm lamplight. She had some awestruck expression at the little cedar, lit up as it was by candles and festoons of ribbon and other frippery. When she came over to us, I could see tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm absolutely thunderstruck, my darlings," she said. "I'm not sure what I was to expect, but it's beautiful." She examined the tree with a delighted smile. "It's all right then, Mother?" I asked, assured if she was genuinely liked it. She put her arm around me. "It's more than all right, son. It's perfect. And you know what? I think even your father would like it. God rest him." I honestly can't remember what we did next. There have been so many years and so many Christmases and so many Christmas trees since then. I'm sure we all went into the dining room where a feast waited for us, and we spent the next hours enjoying the company of our loved ones. But to this day, and should God give me more years, I'm sure until the end of my life, I will never forget the year of our first Christmas tree. Even until the last years of her life, Mother recalled it fondly, calling it our bold little venture. It's a precious memory.
If bringing trees and greenery into houses was a difficult transition for the Presbyterian community, I can only imagine that one new practice would have been easily adopted: the advent of holiday food. Cakes, cookies, puddings, hot drinks. Everyone across the social spectrum enjoyed special treats during the holidays. In fact, in this next story, you might even discover a new treat that you'd like to leave out for Father Christmas on Christmas Eve.
Hey guys, I'm Chris.
And I'm Jen.
And we're here at Brattonsville today, and we are going to be making some 19th century Christmas goodies.
We're making mince pies and also a groundnut candy. So we're excited to have you join us.
So we're making mince pies right now. Now, what is a mince pie? A mince pie is a very classic Christmas dish. It's been made for centuries. What we have is right at about a pound of lean meat that we've minced up small. We're going to put that to the boil. Thank you. We have sultanas, which are golden raisins. We have black currant. We have regular raisins that I have boiled and softened. We have suet right here that we're going to add to it, and that's going to give it a nice mouthfeel, but it's also going to give it a preservation. So when we go to pop this meat later on, after we make our single pie, we'll pop the rest, and that'll keep it good until spring. Then we also have apple, we have dates, we have pecans, because locally we get pecans pretty easy, and we also have some candied citrus that we've made.
So the mince in mince pie just means to cut into small pieces. So the meat we cut small that we're boiling right now, and then we're just preparing the rest of the ingredients with a small dice. This is apple, and then we've also got the raisins and currants, and we'll just combine them all and mix them with the meat and suet once it's all cooked, and that will be our mince for our pie.
Okay, so we have just a traditional short paste, also known as a pie crust. It's simply butter and flour and a little bit of cold water. And we're gonna roll this out to make a pie dough that fills our pie pan.
We are ready to put our mince into our pie crust here.
Go ahead and whisk up an egg real quick, mix in a little bit of water and make an egg wash for the top of this pie. And what it's going to do is give it a real nice pretty shine, and it's going to allow my sugar to make a really pretty crust.
All right, we are ready to bake our mince pie. We have preheated our Dutch oven. It's got coals underneath of it, and once the pie goes in, we're going to put coals on top. Christmas festivities would have included sweets at the end of the meal, so today we're making an excellent groundnut candy. We found the receipt, and that's what we're making today. So first we have to boil some molasses, and to that we're going to add some butter and some brown sugar. And according to the receipt, we're going to boil this for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to add our ground nuts, which you probably know as peanuts. They would have been common in our area and would have been used for this confection at the end of an excellent Christmas dinner. All right, our mixture has boiled and we're going to add the ground nuts. This is, I think, the right consistency. Add our ground nuts and combine, and then we return the pot to the heat. So our mixture with the ground nuts has boiled to the point where it should set into candy, so we're putting it out onto a tin plate and letting it cool where it'll basically be like a peanut brittle.
And here you have it. Christmas treats straight from the 19th century.
Mince pie and ground nut candy.
Thank you for cooking with us today. We hope that you enjoy many, many great Christmases cooking with your family.
Christmas in the 19th century, while a wonderful time for many people, was a complicated time for others. The enslaved people who lived on the Bratton plantation and throughout the Piedmont, some of whom may have been responsible for fancy holiday meals like the one that you just saw, approached this time of year with a degree of anxiety. It could be a time of leisure and family togetherness, but it could also be a time of heartbreak.
I was a young boy. It was big times, and I knew it because the grown-ups were talking about Dr. Bratton giving us some days off. Mama called me over to come to her. I went over and saw tears in her eyes. She was sad, and I didn't know why. It was big times, and I thought she would be happy. Big times was the best time of year for us. It was the only time when we didn't have to do any work in the fields or in the big house. Friends and family from other plantations would come to visit, and sometimes we would visit them. We'd dance and sing for days. On Christmas Day, we would shout Christmas gifts. Dr. Bratton would give the children ginger cakes, and the grown-ups more clothes for the cold months and sometimes a little tobacco too. Big times gave us a moment of happiness, but for some reason, Mama was still worried in a time that was supposed to be a joyful time of year. "What's wrong, Mama?" I asked. She reminded me of how we were sold that very same year. It was the first week in the new year. We used to work for Isabella Irwin. Miss Isabella was married to Dr. Bratton's nephew, William A. Irwin. Mr. William passed away in 1839, and we were sold just a few years later. I don't remember much of that day, but I know it wasn't long after big times. I remember we had to pack up and leave. I didn't understand why Papa couldn't go with us. After a while, we stopped in front of the big white house surrounded by little brick houses. The White House seemed to be as if it nearly towered over me. One of the brick houses would be my new home. They seemed much different from the wood cabins we lived in at the Irwins. This plantation was much bigger than Miss Irwin's, and it seemed like the fields went on for miles. It was scary at first, but we started to make new friends and new family. When she was done, Mama said to me, "I don't know what will happen in the new year, but I want us to always remember each other. This gift is for you. No matter what happens, I want us to remember each other." I asked her, "Why does this happen to us?" She gave me a blessing doll and held me tight. although I'm older now, I still hold on to this doll because it reminds me of her.
Good Christian, then rejoice with heart and soul and voice. Give ye heed to what we say. News, news, Jesus Christ was born today. Ox and ass before him bow, and he is in the manger now. Christ is born today. Christ is born today. Good Christian, then rejoice with heart and soul and voice. Now ye hear of endless bliss. News, news, Jesus Christ was born for this. He hath opened heaven's door, and ye are blessed forevermore. Christ was born for this. Christ was born for this. Good Christian, then rejoice with heart and soul and voice. Now ye need not fear the grave. News, news, Jesus Christ was born to save. Calls you one and calls you all to gain his everlasting hall. Christ was born to save. Christ was born to save. Lulilula, the little tiny child. Bye bye, lulilule, thou little tiny child. Bye bye, lulilule. Oh, sisters too, how may we do for to preserve this day, this poor youngling, for whom we do sing. Bye bye, lulilule. Herod the king, in his raging, charged he hath this day his men of might in his own sight, all young children to slay. That woe is me, poor child, for thee, and never morn and day for thy parting, neither say nor sing. Bye bye, lulilule.
So as many of you may know who have joined us at Christmas time before, few families in this part of the Carolina Piedmont celebrated the birth of Jesus Christ much before the 1840s. The Scots-Irish Presbyterians largely ignored the day, and to the best of our knowledge, so did the Bratton family at first. Once Christmas traditions became popular, however, there was still a push to remember the reason for the holiday. So let's visit the Bratton Female Seminary, where Elizabeth Bratton will share her memory of those earliest days of Christmas celebration.
If I think back far enough, I can just remember the days Christmas came to our family. I was still a student in the Brattonsville Female Seminary with Reverend McWhorter as our teacher. Growing up, the season was a solemn affair, as were most religious holidays for our Presbyterian family. We spent the day reading the Bible or practicing the catechism, if we marked the day at all. It was certainly not the festive holiday we know today. They were exciting days those early years that Christmas celebrations started to show up. At first, we heard about it from our cousins who had been to school in Winston-Salem or further north. They told us about the dances, the lavish dinners, and all of the things, the gussied up trees that people would decorate their houses with, tin stars, paper ornaments, tiny gifts tied to the branches with red ribbon, little candles lighting up dim parlors. It was almost more than our little imaginations could take. And when a picture of a fully decorated Christmas tree was printed in a little book called The Stranger's Gift, we were practically beside ourselves with delight. But there was one day in particular that I'll never forget. We were sitting in Reverend McWhorter's classroom a couple of days before everyone was to leave for Christmas. and one of my friends pulled out a torn page of a book. Evidently, she had torn it from a copy of The Stranger's Gift. Upon the page was an illustration of the most beautiful Christmas tree. It was more beautiful than we had ever even imagined. So of course we older girls huddled around it, trying to keep our voices low, so not to attract the Reverend's watchful eye. Naturally, the littler girls wanted to know what we were hiding, so in about 2 seconds flat, there was such a commotion at the back of the classroom that we caught more than just the Reverend's attention. "Elizabeth Bratton," he said to me, a terrible look of disapproval on his face, "bring whatever is causing such a disruption to me right this moment." Wouldn't you know it, but I was caught in the injustice of the ages, getting reprimanded for something that wasn't even mine. Much to my surprise, the Reverend didn't toss it into the fireplace. Instead, the scowl softened into a look of amusement and he smiled. You could have knocked me over with a feather. "So, you girls have been swooning over this Christmas tree, have you? You know, I saw one of these trees once in New Hampshire. The picture doesn't do it justice." He then sent me back to my seat. After a moment, he said, "Mrs. McWhorter has read The Stranger's Gift, and she had about the same response to this decorated tree that you did. It's stunning, and it's a novelty, and so, of course, people are talking about it." He paused. "But it's not what this holiday is about." At this point, he began to pace the front of the classroom as he settled into one of the sermons that he so often enjoyed preaching at us. "Girls, you must remember this one important truth. This holiday is not about the parties or the food or the songs or," he waved the torn page at us, "or the tree. The moment you feel more of a keenness for the celebration than for the one whom we celebrate, you have made a very serious step toward idolatry. We cannot set the Christmas holiday up as an idol. Instead, we must remember that the purpose of this holiday is the coming of God into the world as a man, to be the perfect sacrifice for the grievous sins of mankind, and to restore us to right relationship with him. And that, girls, is worth celebrating." Reverend McWhorter then tossed the torn page onto his desk and picked up his heavy Bible, which was always close at hand. He flipped to the back half, situated his glasses on the bridge of his nose, and began reading a passage we all knew well enough to recite. "And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was the first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. You shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men.
Peace on earth and goodwill toward men indeed. Although this Christmas season may prove to be unlike any other that we've experienced in many years, I hope that peace and goodwill will meet you and your loved ones. We at Historic Brattonsville are thinking about you and missing you, and we hope that in the new year we will get to meet again. And now, as we round out our time together, I want to send you off with a message from your friends at the museums.
Joy to the world.
Season's greetings from all of us.
A Christmas toast from the Historical Center of York County. Cheers!
Cheers! Happiest of holidays to you all.
Ho ho ho! From the Main Street Children's Museum. May your holidays be filled with joy, and may Santa Claus bring you everything you wish for.
Merry Christmas!
From historic Brattonville,
Glad tidings we bring.
Best wishes of happiness.
Here's to good food.
And good company.
Happy holidays from the Museum of York County.
May there be peace on earth, love, joy, and goodwill to all.
As 2020 comes to a close, we know it's been a difficult year.
You all are in our hearts.
Many thanks to our dedicated volunteers.
To all our family and friends.
To our community nearby and far away.
We're thinking of you this Christmas season.
And we're looking forward to seeing you all again soon.
From all of us here at Culture and Heritage Museums, happiest of holidays to you and best wishes for an even happier New Year.
Huzzah!